Hi and welcome to the Core Finance Master Investor Show. My name's James Faulkner, I'm the editor of Master Investor magazine and I'm joined by Victor Hill.
Good afternoon, James.
Afternoon,
nice
Victor.
suntan.
Thank you very much. That's courtesy of Barley.
Well done.
You've been writing about the technology companies this month.
Yes, I have.
Facebook's been in the news recently. Are technology companies getting too powerful and what are the implications for governments and consumers?
Well, a lot of people think that they are too powerful. They certainly have an extremely long reach, and a lot of people are talking about regulation at last. And the argument goes that they should be regulated just like utilities, although I would argue they're very different beasts. But I guess what has happened this year in the first half of 2018 is that the world has suddenly woken up to the fact that all of these companies have accumulated vast amounts of data about ourselves, about the people who use their interfaces. And this data is often of a very personal and even intimate nature. They know our likes and dislikes, possibly our political affiliations. They know our spending habits and so forth. And of course, we kind of already knew this was happening. The fear, though, is how this data might be used going forward. And the particular catalyst which precipitated this wave of concern was the revelations about the activities of the UK data analytics company, so-called Cambridge Analytica, which is no more. And it does seem that through various arrangements and various algorithms, they got access to the user data of 80 million or more Facebook users. Now, nobody has been able to prove one way or the other whether this data was actually conclusive in terms of its political effect in either the US presidential election of 2016 or the Brexit referendum of 2016. But the fear is that it could be used in such a way as to manipulate election outcomes and therefore to subvert democracy.
And surely a lot of this indignation is quite naive because if the product is free, you are the product, as you put it in your article.
Indeed. Yes. What do you expect if you spend your day online yielding all kinds of information about yourself, whether it be intentionally or not? You shouldn't be entirely surprised that other players have constructed a psychometric profile of you as a user. And indeed, to some extent, we respond to that because many of us actually appreciate the fact that we get offers of interesting holidays of places that we want to go, or from Amazon we might get suggestions of books that we want to read, and invariably they're very intelligent suggestions, and some of us actually act on those prompts. So to an extent, this is benign. The fear is that it could be used in such a way that the outcomes may not be so benign. And I must say, of the 5 tech giants that I discussed, that's Google and Facebook and Apple and Amazon and Microsoft, of these big 5 US tech behemoths, as I call them, they are using data in somewhat different ways. Now, Facebook alone is actually giving us a completely free ride as users, but they are selling our data effectively to third parties. Google is keeping that data in-house and using that data to sell us things, fundamentally. Apple is keeping that data in-house in order, supposedly, to enhance its products. Amazon, of course, is constructing consumer profiles of us so that they can sell us more goodies. And even Microsoft, which in some ways is the most benign and long-established of the tech giants, is using data about us every time we log on, if you have a Microsoft account. So all of these companies are accumulating more and more information about us. And the trend towards greater regulation is underway. It's probably unstoppable. Now, the question is, will this make much difference going forward? And basically what I'm suggesting in the article is that probably we are going to see fines aplenty, probably quite substantial monetary fines levied against these organizations for abuse of data. Just as we have in the financial sector, it's become quite common for the US Department of Justice to impose significant fines on banks and other financial institutions. But we're probably also going to see the materialization of some kind of regulatory body which determines what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of online content. Now, the problem is that your idea of what is acceptable and my idea of what is acceptable may differ. I mean, these are very subjective matters. And indeed, what is fake news? You know, Dr. Razak, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, determined that he would outlaw fake news. But of course, he was the one to decide what is fake news and what is not fake news. And now President Macron, in a Western democracy, is saying much the same thing. But who decides? Who gets to determine what is fake and what is not fake?
So out of all the large tech companies, the FANGs as they're known, which ones are most exposed to regulation right now, do you think?
Well, I think Facebook has got to be the most prominently in line to be regulated because at some point, probably in the US of A, and probably quite soon, there will be some kind of judicial ruling to the effect that they are not so much a platform as a publisher, and that will make them responsible for their content in every respect. And that will be transformative in itself. I think also they will be the subject of a blitz against so-called fake news. Now, my view of fake news is that there's always been fake news, and I give a few historical examples of that. We used to call it propaganda.
Yep.
And indeed, you know, back in the day, the Nazis and the Soviets had departments of propaganda which would specifically existed in order to manipulate information. And to some extent, that's always been happening. But I just think that we should encourage people, particularly young people, to use the internet in a more critical and analytical way and to deploy their critical judgment in terms of what they read and what they consume.
And valuations in the tech arena are quite high right now.
Yeah.
Are there any companies in particular that you find interesting at the moment?
Well, you're right. In conventional valuation terms, they're all very expensive stocks. But you see, the things that are happening there are so at the cutting edge of future technology that we might even find that these companies morph into something even more extraordinary. So I gave the example of Facebook launching a payment platform on which it could leverage its own cryptocurrency. And they are working on this. Or the fact that all of these 5 companies are developing forms of artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is thinking skills, and there are many different types of thinking. So they're all working towards so-called general AI. Google has a machine which can ring you up and book a table at your restaurant or book a haircut in your hair salon, and you won't know that it's a robot. It sounds just like a human being. So these are all at the cutting edge of AI, and these technologies will develop and will continue to blossom and will continue to bear fruit. So in a sense, what I'm saying is don't give up on technology yet, despite the high valuations. There's more extraordinary technological innovation to come.
And aside from the threat of regulation, isn't it quite possible that some of these companies could be at risk of getting broken up, given how large they've become and how, you know, all-encompassing their portfolio of businesses has become as well?
Well, a lot of people would like to do that. I mean, I speculated as to whether a court case might come about which rules that Amazon is an illegal monopoly, which would break the American antitrust laws. I mean, they're single-handedly demolishing the high street in the UK, Main Street in the USA. They're just getting bigger and bigger. They're moving now into consumer staples with own-branded household products on which they could make huge additional revenues and profits. So I think probably at some point someone will try to break them up. But the problem you've got with all these high-tech firms is that they are natural monopolies. If you were to break Facebook up into a number of different social media platforms, there would be a global tendency for them to come back together again, because you and I want to be on a platform which is global and where we can find anyone in any country for any particular reason. So these platforms are going to be quite difficult to break up into smaller entities without causing severe dislocation.
Right. What are you writing about next month, Victor?
Well, I'm continuing, James, on the technology theme, and you might recall last year I wrote about cybersecurity and cyber wars, and we just endured the May Black Cyber Friday events. I'm coming back to cybersecurity with a piece which I'm calling Cyber Wars 2. There have been a number of developments in the last 12 months in this space, and what's really both worrying and very interesting is that certain intelligence agencies are muscling in on cybersecurity, and they are actually setting up investment funds, including the CIA and Israel's Mossad, and they are allocating to startups. Now, the interesting thing is that some of these startups are available to investors like you and me. Right. So I want to focus on a few of those opportunities which are riding this new wave of cybersecurity technology.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that one. That's all we've got time for this month. I'll be back next month. You can read the entire magazine on masterinvestor.co.uk. Thanks for watching.